Hello. How's everyone today? I added some more 7TV emotes for us to use. They're all adorable. So today, the Discord today voted on us playing a detective game. So we are playing Case of Distrust. Ben Wander presents A Case of Distrust, I should say. It's a 1924 San Francisco private investigator game. So it sounds like fun to me. Yep. Hopefully, I have a new mic setting, so hopefully you can hear me. It's not too quiet. But let us get straight into the game. Let's see. There you go. Should be able to see it now. This is another one of those games that doesn't have volume control in the game as either. But decided to launch it earlier and then turn it down already. So hopefully it's not too loud. A Case of Distrust. Settings. Yes. Start from the beginning. Let's solve a murder. Or fail at attempting to. Alright. Let's get this going. A dotted line. I woke in my desk chair. I awoke in my desk chair. Across me were his piercing amber eyes. They surprised me at first, but I should have known he'd be there. I stretched and said, mid-yawn, not very nice to sneak into a sleeping woman's apartment, but his stare just continued. I laughed at his glare. I'd seen San Francisco's shrewd thugs, hardened cops, and deadly politicians, but no one could ever match that gaze. I knew I didn't have what he wanted. Reaching into my coat, I took out my knife and flicked it open. I gave him the knife. Sliding it across the desk. Look, I said, that's all there is. Take it or leave it. But a detective knows when she's beat. And I knew then he wanted to search the place, and that's what he would do. I sighed, knowing my weakness for his type. All right, I said, let's look. The little gleeful meow in victory. I picked up the knife and cut a piece of my apple that the cat had rejected. Always the sore winner, I jabbed. But I was smiling too, because I was telling the truth. There was absolutely no other food in my apartment. The cat often dropped by to scavenge. He made a lot of noise when he thought I was holding out on him. But right now, the place was clean empty. No food anywhere. I had to prove it to him. Oh, okay, so I can just packaged cigarettes were all the latest trend, but I still preferred to roll my own. The ashtray was in evidence that it was a practice skill. I suppose I had a lot of free time back then. I obtained copies of old murder cases from the San Francisco Police Department records. When I'd left when I left. I love reading through them, even though my own contributions were minimal. At that time, I was long for those types of jobs. The truth was, any work was hard to find for a female detective. I kept a small statue underneath the side of my table. It had been police evidence in a crime, and its owner hadn't wanted it back. Took a shine to it, so I snagged it for myself on my way out of the department. All right. The newspaper flopped on the floor. This headline about the death of Lenin, leader of the Red Menace, sweeping Russia. It seemed that Bolsheviks had lost their head. My old notebook, now filled to the brim. I wrote everything down, even the minor details. Never know what can be useful. The first half had my old cases. Details from the beats I used to walk and my policewoman days. Of course, policewomen were forbidden from going on patrol, but Lewis often overlooked that rule. The cat had waltzed into my apartment. A few years earlier, he kept coming back. Though there was rarely a morsel to eat, he continued his loud meowing until I proved to him that the place was empty of food. The regular white icebox, tinged yellow. With age half blocked, the kitchen doorway, my income rarely kept it stocked in it. And right now, it was empty. Was there anything else? The door? Go to the outside world. If I left now, though, the cat would start wailing so loud I'd get a complaint from the neighbors. You need to convince me before I could leave. The lamp had belonged to my Uncle Lewis. He'd been a police officer, one who argued with policewomen. Could be good. One who argued policewomen could be good detectives. Even while the others jeered at me, I knew he'd been right. My current workload didn't help that claim. I tried not to. I tried to think about Lewis. I was lousy at handling the emotions behind those thoughts. It's too early for me to be reading. What am I supposed to do here? Show the cat that there's no food. Okay. Can I drag the cat over here? Double click. No food. I think I've clicked everything I can click, right? That's the door. She said I can't go out there yet. Is there like a keybind I don't know? Oh, I can talk to the cat. Doesn't matter how doe-eyed you are, cutie pie. We've got no food around, I told him. He licked his chops and looked at me. Apparently, he still didn't believe that. I needed to contradict him somehow. To show him something in the apartment that would prove it was empty. Contradict. Evidence. The icebox. I opened the icebox so the cat could see inside. Empty, I told him. The cat looked quizzically at this open door, then back at me. Sorry, fella. There's no grub in there for me either. He stared at me with his eyes as disappointed as I felt. Those big, yellow, always got to my soul. Thoughts of my family filled my head. But never mind. Those thoughts, at the time, they were distractions. I moved on from them. A loud meow from the cat snapped my thoughts back into the moment. Took a deep breath and grinned back at him. Guess you can scram. I said, nobody's going to come knocking with food for you, fella. There immediately came a banging on the front door. Beyond a nuisance, this cat was psychic too. Your order out? Yeah, I asked him. Can I make the font large? I opened the door. The door was a regrettably familiar face of Connor Green. I looked past him. Peering left and right into the hallway. I heard a woman's heels marching down the carpeted stairs, but otherwise the building was silent and empty. Evidently, Green had come alone. He stared at me through the doorway with a coy smile. Well, ain't you gonna invite me inside? I started closing the door. But he stuck out a foot to stop me. Hey now, he chitted. Foul way to treat a customer, Malone. So that was his angle, hiring me as a detective. I wondered what a bootlegger would need with a private eye, but he answered without my prompt. I'll make this quick. I can't take this to the hog house or the pigs will laugh at me. Will laugh me out. Man, I cannot read today. And other dicks just aren't as tempting. His grin widened. Thought this was going to be quick, I said, and started rolling a cigarette. It wasn't quick, and I already rolled and lighted the second smoke when Green finally finished his story. I noted the important bits in my book. It started with a letter slipped under his door in a white envelope. The envelope contained a single typewritten leaf, which he handed to me. It read, "End your game, or we'll end you." It had no signature instead, ending with only a small scribble in the bottom right-hand corner that resembled a black hand. Green had a lead on a new running scheme, a connection from Vancouver. He'd given a sample to Tiny Paul, the gangster who ran the Tin Spoon Speakeasy for mob boss Jerry Ferry. They'd agreed to buy in for more. Green surmised the letter was about his rum running. He suspected Redstone Stable, another bootlegger, were sending the letter. He told me the stable ran a bar shop during the day and gave me the address. Green needed to know who the threat was from. He'd get Paul's gang to deal with them and continue his scheme to get rich. If I go snippy myself, he concluded, folks see I'm not trusting people, not trusting leads to no customers. I need to play it low key, which is where you come in. I raised an eyebrow and stared at him. With the cigarette smoke, something in his yarn was still twisted. He must have noticed my reticence? Because he said, I work closely with Lewis. I'm sure he'd want to protect me as much as any other victim. My uncle. I was still searching for answers. After his death, he'd been a man obsessed with helping victims and bringing justice to those beyond salvation. Without those ethos, I never understood how he could have taken his own life. Those thoughts haunted me. I quit the police department and started my own practice, taking his philosophy. Was Green worth my time? Would he be worth Lewis's? Green had tipped off my uncle in a few cases. I wondered if that was enough to warrant my protection. Before I could think past my headache, he threw a bill in my lap. Keep the C node as a retainer. And don't worry about getting in touch. I'll find you later for a chat. He turned down the hallway and I let him go. If he was willing to give me $100 with no commitment, I wouldn't stop him. I turned back to the apartment, still confused by the whole story. My headache wasn't helping either. Whenever I lacked clarity, I tripped to the Southern Coffee, which is usually the cure. I have to make that font a different size. It is so hard for me to read. Try small. I turned back to the apartment, still confused about the whole story. My headache wasn't helping either. Whenever I lacked clarity, a trip to the Southern Coffee was usually the cure. That's better. It's not so far spaced apart. The letters aren't. Alright, say bye to the kitty cat. The cat had waltzed into my apartment a few years earlier. He kept coming back, though there was rarely a morsel to eat. I mounted a gold plate on the outside that read, PC Malone, Private Investigator. I leave. Yeah, so I'm very dyslexic. So when words are like spaced out that badly, it's really hard for me to read. Alright, there was only one place I needed to clear my mind ahead. Southern Coffee. Southern Coffee was a basement dive. It wasn't modern, hip, or even busy. Or ever busy. And it was my favorite place to down some paint. Especially in the company of the best bartender in the city. I go here. I hailed a driver, gave him the address, and stepped through the back door. I debated talking with the driver. Don't talk to the driver. I peered out the window until we arrived. We never talked to the drivers. Southern Coffee was an automat diner. Ethel Burgess, the lone waitress, was friendly to help with an inquiry. Of course, if you winked at her at right, she'd show you the way to the downstairs toilet, where Frankie played bathroom attendant. Southern Coffee had some distinct feelings of home. The familiar smell of mold in the old basement was enough to put a grin on my face. Frankie had a bond with that old shaker at the end of the bar. I was surprised he hadn't named it. He could sling a mean drink, though he'd only use the good liquor if you liked to. Frankie liked me. I grabbed the wine bottle at the bar and examined its label. It featured a picture of grapes and the words, Sacramento use only. Frankie looked at me with a spark in his eye. Go ahead, he said. Give it a swig. Yeah, I'll drink it. I grabbed the half-empty glass that had been next to the bottle and swirled some of its contents between my gums. A bit spicy, ain't it? Frankie said. It's good. I nodded. And gulped the rest down. It'll cost you too, he said, with a smile. He grabbed the bottle from me, turning it through his hands. Rabbit charged me more than a nickel for this beauty. Only this type of Napa wine is made from that Zinfandel grape. It has a unique aroma. I've been trying to learn more about wine. Seemed everyone knew their stuff, but me. I noted what Frankie had said about the origins of the grape as he sat the bottle back at the bar. You don't even drink. Frankie let out a bellied laugh. I can still enjoy the smell, he said. There was a story behind his Tito-Italian, but he cut short anyway. Talk about it. An odd relationship with the drink for a barman. Frankie sighed. Too bad. More folks can't know about it. That woman's league is the devil. The Women's Christian Temperance Union was under feminist Frances Willard, a positive force for the suffrage of women, but her staunch support of prohibition, along with the union's massive political clout, irked the very wet San Franciscan public, and she particularly wasn't popular with the bartenders. Take a seat, he said. I'll make you something else. He was a big fella. He'd been in a decent picture. He was a big fella. He was a big fella, both wide and tall, but he must have been a little over 50. He had a round head, kind of brown eyes, and cropped a ring of gray hair encircling the otherwise bald scalp. His voice had a swarm timbre that complemented the tobacco and whiskey smells of his sweet speakeasy. I sat at the bar. You got the Spooks PC? He asked. You're worn as a catcher as mitt. I suppose my exhaustion showed. I won $100 for nothing. I can't let it go. I told Frankie about the case, the threatening letter sent to Connor Green. Now he assumed it was related to his bootlegging and his suspicion of Redstone Stable. The story took longer than I wanted, Frankie showing genuine interest by asking many questions. When I finished, he threw me the whiskey sour he'd been stirring. I took a large gulp and gave a sigh of thanks. Well, Green's case is better than most of what you've been given, he said with some enthusiasm. At least it's not more of the adultery bunk. Sure, I replied, but I started with a goal in mind. What's the point in helping a man like Green? Frankie clicked his tongue on his teeth. Lawyer or priest? Why does it matter? Let me ask you. Are the clients you have now the types you want to help? I admitted they weren't. I told him that I wanted more from my detecting life. It could be that Green's case shoots your career forward, Malone. I sighed and stared down at my drink. But my daze was interrupted by the basement door opening with a slamming shut. Inside, a small, blustering woman began marching towards me. She was wearing a light blue cloche hat with a gray ribbon tilted back on her head. A scarf of similar blue draped around her neck. But I was startled by what she wore under it. A gray trench coat that looked too large for her frame. It was exactly like the one that had belonged to Lewis. She hurled insults at me a while. All I could do was sit and take it, until she ran out of gas and started breathing heavily. I set my drink down at the bar and looked her in the eyes. I inserted a hello. I'm Phyllis Malone. How can I help you? Accompanied by a smile as genuine as I could muster, that knocked her off balance. She stumbled over her next few words and added, "And you are?" The flame returned to her eyes. Between clenched teeth, she hissed, "I am the wife of the bum who sneaks into your bed." I asked, "The cat?" But humor wasn't her angle. She launched into another poetic stanza, and just left her sty this morning, and finally ended, and that's when I gathered she was Connor Green's wife. Miss Green, I am a private investigator, not a homewrecker, and I don't think your husband is in his line of business, would want to bed a dick anyhow. Her look was pure incredulity. A woman in that line of work? She questioned. I don't believe it. Should I prove it or just tell her to fuck off? I'll prove it. Should I show her the notebook? Or should I show her the letter? The notebook has a list of all my cases. I'll show her my notebook. I open my notebook and flip through the pages. You see, Miss Green, this is what I do. There's not much more I can show you to prove it. It's still more coaxing for her to believe me, but eventually she came around. She seemed grateful I explained it to her. Apparently she had seen her husband leave my apartment, and distraught, she had followed me all the way to Frankie's basement and decided to confront me. I suppose I lost my head after that. I thought I've seen, she said. She began to cry. Frankie, ever chivalrous, to a dimpled girl, came around to the bar and held her up. Now that's all right, Miss Green. Why don't I hail you a cab and send you on back home? She agreed, and they walked together up the stairs. When Frankie returned, I said to him, You turned night real quick. He snorted a laugh. Ah, hell, well, we can't have that siren in here. With a torture yelling like that, every street bugger would have come to her rescue. Miss Green is a torch singer? Well, I learned she was Mrs. Connor Green just now when she came in here. I'd only seen her as a little fanny singing lead for the jazz band at the Tin Spoon. The Tin Spoon, I said. Tiny Paul's joint? That's where Green is selling his liquor. Say, you think that's where she met her husband? I laughed. You're the real sleuth, frankly. He made a sarcastic bow. I shook my head. You're telling me you escorted our little torture out just to avoid a bit of hot water? Frankie flushed and said, What are you talking about, Malone? I was never good with emotions, but it was plain that Frankie had instantly fallen for the girl. So, what if I had more to squeeze out of her? I asked. What more could you possibly want from a little Fanny? She can't have anything to do with Green's mess. I don't. I shrugged and stood up from the bar stool. What had just happened was quite the ruckus. It seemed like my cue to move along. The bar stool were crooked and worn. My usual one was in the center of the room. I could sit in it for hours if Frankie had a yarn to spin. Of course, the sauce helped me keep me in place. Once I asked Frankie to lend me some cash from the register, he growled so fierce that I decided to not ask again. I didn't think his employer would notice before I got it back, but maybe he just wanted to save me from myself. Frankie was still behind the bar. I was stuck on the case. A long drink with him might be helpful. Is there anything else? No? The wooden stairs lead to the outside world. Let's leave. I was heading up the stairs when Frankie called after me. So what are you going to do? I've been thinking. About little Fanny. I suppose even mobsters have had people who cared about them. And she'd been wearing Lewis's old jacket, so perhaps Green and Lewis have been closer than I realized? I guess I'll have Connor Green's bait, I replied. You got nothing better on the stove, and he might need the help. Something still stinks, though. Well, what's your plan? Frankie asked. Do I see it? I have 3 goals right now. Green hired me for a job. Find the guy who wrote the letter? That's the basic part. But you need more, asked Frankie. I nodded. Green is a shady character. I have to learn about him. Who is this guy? Dig into his past. I can't go back to him blind. And then there's something up about his bootlegging. How did Green get a connection like that? What's his source? Squeezing that lemon might give me more juice. That sounds right, he replied. So where's he off to? I've got 3... I smiled and went back up the stairs. Okay, I already read it. It kind of confuses me because it does like this fade thing. Sometimes it's the text on the bottom and sometimes it's all the text. I was debating on where to go next. Southern Coffee, the barbershop, Tin Spoon Lounge, Green's house. Let's go to the barbershop. Green had suspected Redstone Stable of sending him that letter. Apparently, Stable owned a barbershop in the financial district. I figured there would be no harm in asking Stable about it directly. Yeah, let's go. I held the driver the address and stepped back through the back. I debated talking with the driver. He never talked to the driver. I closed my eyes and leaned in the window until we arrived. The barbershop was down an alley in the financial district, opposite the red brick National Bank. A small bell above the door twinkled as I walked in. The stable's cabinets were similar to my own. Though mine were as dull gray metal, this was a deep red wood that looked heavy. The modern hydraulic barber chair had always seemed ostentatious to me, but this one, with a soft brown cushion, gold embroidery, was the most ornate one I'd ever seen. The maroon leather chair looked comfortable, seemed elaborate for a barbershop waiting chair. There was a tall man in the center of the room. He was wearing a flamboyant pink suit, tailored to accentuate his stature. With a maroon bow tie and pocket square, I gathered this was Redstone Stable. The man turned to face me. He grinned, and his squinting blue eyes made the smile feel genuine. I must apologize, he said. We don't take walk-ins. I studied his face. The wrinkles around his eyes indicated that he was at least 40, but the rest of his skin was clean and smooth. He wore no hat and shaved his head completely bald. When combined with his smooth skin, it hinted at the look of a small turtle. His pink suit and maroon accessories only added to his eccentricity. Man. He smiled and said, "How foolish of me. Of course you are here for information, Miss Malone." Well, how about a drink? I asked. Get us started. Stable's eyes lit up and he laughed. You were completely unlike the other sleuths. He poured me a whiskey and handed it to me. As I gulped it, he asked me why I was there, with a genuine curiosity in his voice. Ask about notes. I pulled Green's note from my pocket and showed it to him, but didn't let him hold it. Green tells me this letter is from you. I told him that he doesn't like the threats. Stable lowered his head and studied the note, and then chuckled. His knowing grin returned to his face. But this is a black hand letter, he said, flourishing a hand towards the paper. Have you ever seen a black hand letter, Miss Malone? I confessed I had it. Exactly, he said. You shouldn't ring your friend Shipman at the station and ask what it means. Stan Shipman has been one of my uncle's regular partners in the Vice rackets. I wondered what Shipman could have to do with Green's case. Stables seemed to think that he had a lot to do with it. I pocketed the letter and continued with my questions. But I made a note to stop by police headquarters and see Shipman. Well, Miss Malone, he smiled. Will there be anything else? Nope. Nothing now, I said, and turned back to the barbershop. I looked around Stable's elaborate shop. The hat rack was a deep mahogany engraved with a gold lettering that read Fraser & Co. Furnishings. I think, the two sides of the mirror frame were cylindrical, painted blue, red, and white to look like a barber's pole. They clashed with the otherwise elegant furnishing. The front door has a bell on top of it. I leave. Let's go to the Tin Spoon Lounge. Tin Spoon Lounge was a speakeasy in North Beach run by Tiny Paul, the gangster that Green put in, yeah. I'd never been there. The mob keeps a tight lip on their own houses, but I figured it'd be a good place to chase Green's bootlegging story. I go there. I flagged a taxi cab on the way, and I thought about chatting with the driver to the past time. Alright, I'll talk to him this time. He was young and not a teenager, but not far off. Redness in his face and a mean scowl told me he was angry. Don't much like driving taxi cabs, Al. Offered, he looked quizzically at me, over his shoulder before understanding what I meant. No, lady. I like it right enough. Just some bozo before you were in here was giving me hell. Before you was giving me hell. Because I looked like the boy his daughter is going with. Went off about how my generation was ruining America. The scumbag don't know jack. Sounds like you know. I'm no genius, he replied, but talking to anyone for the last century, they'll tear your ear for just being young. How'd they get so high, I wonder, given the world in the late 1890s like a smooth running register? Then what'd they do? Bash it to every curb in sight? Their greed, their war, their politics? Now they give us a ruined clunker and they're mad at our manners when we grab the keys. I agreed. The Great War was the hardest fought at home and abroad. I said, the old men who put us there had some nerve. He replied hostily, and after those years, they tell us to get in line. It's a bum deal to me, sister. We're in the information age, and the news of the world is crap. They're just angry we can see they're falling. The taxi cab rolled to a stop anyhow, the driver said. Thanks for letting me blow off some steam. Have a nice day, miss. I opened the car door and stepped out. I opened the cab door in front of the North Beach warehouse with a wooden sign. The sign's text was too worn for me to decipher any of its English, but a small gray spoon was still visible below the letters. I rapped my knuckles twice over the large metal door handle. A panel just above my eye slid to reveal a pair of eyes. The eyes looked me up and down and stared ahead. They were black and held no emotion. The room beyond was dimly lit, so I couldn't see much of their surrounding face. Cleared my throat, then a rumbling voice emerged from behind the door. Full your cups, feel no distress at all. Our great thoughts shrinking less. I looked at the eyes, still unmoving. I understood. Normally I wanted a password. I thought I might have something in the notes that could help with the minute. password. You repeat the line back to him. Yep. That's what I said to you, but that ain't what I'm looking for. Someone wanted a password to conclude his riddle. Fill full your cups, feel no distress, and our great thoughts shrink less. I stay silent. After I beat, the small window slid shut with a thud. Prohibition was a joke in San Francisco. Most speakeasies would let just about anyone through the door, but the mob's ones were as relaxed with their rules. I knew I wouldn't enter until I said the correct response. I wondered who I could ask about a speakeasy password. I'm guessing go to Green's house. Green's house might contain more clues about his past, and for some reason, threatening letter would come his way. And if I got lucky, Miss Green would be there, and I can jump with more questions. I gave my address and slashed into the back seat of the taxi cab. I thought a good way to pass the journey might be chat with the driver. I don't talk to the driver. Talked about politics, but I don't remember exactly what about. All my conversations with the cab drivers were memorable. Green's apartment was a section of Old Western Addition mansion. The owners had divided it for struggling families to rent after the 1906 fire. Once downtown had been rebuilt, people of means moved out of the area. Recent immigration, mainly from Japan, rented most of the apartments in this part of town. I knocked on the front door, but didn't get a response. The latch was undone, and I pushed it open and stepped to the room. The apartment had a dense cloud of black smoke hanging from the ceiling. Apparently, the window wasn't open much, and either Mistress or Mrs. Green smoked heavily. The gray trench coat was hanging in the doorway. It certainly looked identical to Lewis. I searched the pockets and found no identifying marks. It might have been a different jacket, but in recent appearance it was way off-putting. The bottles on top of the round table were mostly empty. I opened a drawer on the backmost table. In it were 2 train tickets. I mumbled St. Louis to myself, but then came the cackling of Miss Green. Ha! Forget about moving, Connor. I won't budge. Her head was raised, but her eyelids would still remain closed. The ashtray on top of the smallest table was overflowing with spent cigarettes. Empty bottles were strewn around the apartment. I brought one of them to my nose and smelled the distinct aroma of laudanum. Opium mixed with booze, a harsh toxic. A wilting plant was on the furthest table from the door. I could never keep plants alive either. Even as the petals fell, they were still a vibrant yellow. I felt Miss Green slumped in her chair, eyes closed, head rocking slowly. Hello, Miss Green, I said loudly. She let out a loud moan from the chair, then lifted her head. I failed to raise her eyelids. She tilted her head to the side and giggled, and then let a lull back into her place, I shook her lightly, and she moaned again. She said nothing more. I asked her further questions, but her head just lulled back to where it had been. There was nothing else she could say. Okay. Is there... I shook her slightly, and she moaned again, but she has not said nothing more. Is there anything else I can ask questions about? The frame was just warped enough to prevent the door from fully closing. I guess we can go to the police station now. I always dreaded visiting the PD after I'd flown the coop, and I was in no mood right now. But if the shipman did know something about Green's note, I had to chase it up. I stepped into the taxi and rocked into the comfortable position on the back seat. I thought about starting a chat with the driver. Alright, I'll talk to him. I dozed in the back seat until we arrived. The North Beach station was San Francisco Police Department headquarters, also poetically baptized the Hall of Justice. The building dominated the corner of Kearny and Washington in Chinatown. It was built after the 1906 earthquake. I thought it looked even more sour than it had before. I strode to the young Bob girl behind the large oak desk. She must have been new, because we shared no recognition of one another. I asked for a shipment, and she motioned to me to a chair as she pressed a pearl button. I sat down and she disappeared through a frosted door. I rolled another cigarette to pass the time. Between puffs, I thought about the history of the department. Between puffs, I thought about my history at the department. I imagined the station captain would have been furious had he known I was there. I did, after all, break a tumbler with the help of another officer's temple. That had been my last day on the force. It wasn't long before Shipman walked out the frosted door. Shipman smiled when he saw me. He'd always been helpful to me in my days on the force. Working closely with Lewis, he acquired the habit of bouncing theories my way. He judged officers purely on results, and because of that, he was one of my few fans. We exchanged brief pleasantries before he said, "Won't come here for a glad handing." He had a habit of removing the subject from his sentence. "What needs doing?" I explained my case to him. He scoffed when I mentioned Connor Green, working for that pinhead. Got a good mind to run him up the flagpole. "I just need to know about this letter." I handed him the note Green had given me and explained its context. After looking it over, Shipman tried to stifle a laugh. "Completely bunk," he said. "Seeing this symbol in the corner, mark of the Black Hand Gang? Except Black Hand letters are always ransom letters, not threats. No foothold on this coast, anyhow. Never been one in California." "So the letter's fake," Shipman nodded. "Someone trying to imitate the Black Hand?" I grunted a sigh and noted what he said. "Don't know if Green's getting one over on you," he said. "Or if someone else is pulling Green's leg. But having more dirt on the man's couldn't hurt, especially if he's your client." I'd agreed. I've been trying to dig through his past. "You got any bunk on him?" Shipman shook his head. "No, from Oakland is all I know, but I can do some more digging." I thanked him for that. Under a pile of vice, though. Might take me a while. Why don't I tell if anyone I find something? I had no office where I could receive messages, but I dreaded returning to the station. I told him to call Southern Coffee. Just leave anything with Franklin Conaway, I instructed. He said that was all right. We traded goodbyes. I went back to the station's entrance. Now I knew the letter was fake, and the shipment was looking into Green's past for me. I just needed to chase up the bootlegging lead. I stepped in the streets and thought about where to go. We could try the Tin Spoon Lounge again. Oh yeah, I don't have the password still. I can go to the barbershop. See if he knows the password. I don't want to talk to the cast driver. The barbershop is down the alley. Yep, we know. Will there be anything else? Tells me a green letter is a forgery, I said to Stable. He grinned wide. "Yes, Miss Malone. I thought I told you, but I was curious whether Mr. Green himself knows it." Stable still wouldn't admit no knowledge of the note. "Well, Miss Malone," he smiled. "Will there be anything else?" Does he know? Does he know this? I showed him something in my notes, but I got no good information from our exchange. Alright. leave. Let's go back to Southern Coffee. Maybe Shipman knows. Frankie was still behind the bar. I wondered if Shipman had left any message for me. Dr. Frankie asked about the message. I sat at my regular stool, got my knuckles around the bar. Any message, Frankie? I asked him. And what do you mean by that? Well, I told Sam Shipman, an old contact on the force, to leave any dirt with you if you found it. Frankie laughed. So now I'm your bartender and your secretary. Say, if I become your housemaid, will you at least pay more? Well, pay me? So I'm guessing you haven't heard anything, I said. Nothing yet, Mrs. Chief. Frankie chuckled. Shipman's supposed to call you about Green. What have you got so far? No real breaks to speak of, I said. Well, alright. I'll let you know if the shipman gives me a call. I thanked him. What else you got, you asked? Ask about my notes. Does he know the Tin Spoon password? Tin Spoon doorman kept me outside the joint. He wants the password, but I have no idea. Fill your cups. Feel no distress. At all, our great thoughts shrinking less, he says. You gangsters were thought-reeling type. All of our great thoughts shrinking less, he said. What? I asked, puzzled. He turned and grabbed a bottle from his shelf. Vengeance stuff. This. Strange. They'd use it as their code. Hand me the bottle and I read the back of the label. Fill your cup. Feel no distress. After all, great thoughts shrinking less. We'll do a good deed nevertheless. Okay. So the password was the poem from the Vengeance label. I now know what I had to say to come to the doorman. Okay. I guess Tin Spoon Lounge. Let's just go. I don't want to talk to him. I knock. I look at my notes. I say the correct password. Would do a good deed, nevertheless. I recited the line that Frankie had shown me on his bottle. I squinted. Wait here. Came a gruff response. The counter slid shut, and I heard footsteps walking away. I rolled a cigarette and waited. After a quarter of an hour, the panel opened again. Bar closed, but you can shoot at pool in the upstairs room, said the eyes. He pulled the door ajar so I could see a set of metal stairs. Walked the stairs and opened the thin wooden door to the billiards room. It was much smaller than I expected for a gangster's paradise. The only light came from was the hanging lamps above the billiard tables. The haze of cigarette smoke darkened the room corners. A couple tall chairs were placed around the billiards table. The pool table was the focus of its space, the light reflecting from it. Smooth green surface tinted the den. The room was lit only by dangling light lamps. The rack on the wall held 5 cues. A bottle of unlabeled wine sat on the table. When I sniffed, it smelled of strong spice. I saw a tall, broad-shouldered man playing the table by himself. Based on Frankie's description, I gathered this was Tiny Paul. I cleared my throat to get him to look at me, then followed with a casual, "Are you even going to take a shot?" He stood up straight, rested his cue on the table, and looked at me sideways. It was the petulant look of a boy forced to play with the younger siblings. "Hello," he sighed. His voice was deep. Apparently, Fairy only hired baritones. But if he had no grovel, it echoed slightly around the small room. Imagine he could have huffed and puffed the entire block to rubble. It was like watching them, he said, nodding to the balls on the side of the table, thinking through my options. I never shot much pool, but I thought he might like me more if I feigned an interest. I considered lying to him, telling him that I played a lot. I'll stick to cards. I didn't lie to him just then. Stud, blackjack, or bridge? He asked honestly. I raised an eyebrow, and he showed me a sheepish grin. A gambler plays them all. He continued after crackling his knuckles. But I don't think you're here for a game. I asked about Green. How's the gamble on the wine? He grunted. Green setting it up. We're the muscle. What more is there? You like Green? I asked. The wrinkles on his brow deepened. Like or dislike, doesn't matter. Sometimes I work with what I'm given. And he's given us a good lead. I suppose that's why you're here, Malone. So, he known me too. The doorman must have looked me up. The bays talk fast. Anyway, he said, eyeing the billiard table. You need anything else from me? If you want something better, anything that's specific. Mobsters never failed to grate my nerves. He wouldn't tell me anything unless I pushed him with what I already knew. Jesus. Let's see. Let's see what he says about this. What's that you got to do with any of this? Okay. So you're giving Green the dough, I asked. That's right, he said. We gave him the cash to get the supply going. You already gave him the money? Aren't you afraid he's going to run on you, I asked? Chapel frowned. I suppose you know less than I thought. Well, just to set you straight, that kid's right under my thumb. No way you go out of town and lie before setting up our source. He turned his gaze back to me. Okay. I got a threatening letter. Know anything about this note? I asked him. Pulled up the letter with the black hand on it. Pine Paul looked at the page, then laughed with his whole body. So there is a letter. Green's shaking all over that. I'm not losing sleep, though. Look, Green and I aren't best pals, but nobody will touch him with our protection, and none of us sent it to him, or else I would know about it. Anything else? He suspects the Redstone Stable. Know anything about the Redstone Stable? I asked. Heard the name. He replied. The Wildy Gossip. He could tell you more about himself. You won't give me anything on him? Now, why would I do that? He shook his head and asked, anything else? Okay. Ask about the singer. Green's wife is a torture hero, I asked. Paul smiled with the pipes she's got built into that body. She's the reason most fellows keep coming back to this joint. Okay. Ask him about the password. You're still gonna do password. Paul smiled. An old liquor slogan. That's rich. And here I thought you dicks were supposed to be learned. I raised a questioning brow. It's called The Drinking Song, a poem by Thomas Hardy, an old Brit. I asked more about the poem. It's all about man thinking we're at the top of the chain and slowly understanding where we aren't. All our thoughts, our theories, amount to nothing. We're just apes floating in the wide ocean of space. How can you possibly cope with that? How do you even know what we are now? But to hell with that, take your mind off of it, have a drink, and do something good. Not a bad code if you ask me. It's not. I tilted my head, neither agreeing or disagreeing, but simply impressed by Paul's knowledge of Victorian poetry. Alright, that's enough of a lesson. Was there something else you wanted, or can I get back to this? He motioned towards the billiard table. Had known bad. Don't I have like a thing about? What's my evidence? Oh. Tickets to St. Louis. I considered telling Tiny Bull about the green tickets to St. Louis, but if these mobsters thought that Green was about to blow town, they'd be liable to dig him in and it was an early grave. I still need to solve my case, and for that I need my employer alive. Maybe after it all cleared up, I'd mention Green's tickets. They must have been lost in thought because Tiny Paul said, "Can I get back to the pool already?" Dangling lamps, cube rack. Maybe he knows about the gray trench coat. Okay, no. I think that is it. This Green's coat. Can I ask it this way? Do you know anything about calling her husband? Okay, I don't have that smart. I didn't have anything else to say to him, so he cracked his knuckles, arched over the table, and resumed lining up the shot. I leave. I thought about heading back down the dark stairs to the street. I guess I can go to Green's house again? No. Let's go to Southern Coffee, see if we have a message, and if not, we'll go to Green's house. I don't want to talk to him. Nothing yet. Okay. So go to Green's house. I asked him how he drove a taxi cab. It's alright, he said. Pays the bills, I suppose. But those things have two wheels too many. I like motorcycles. You like motorcycles better, as I asked? He smiled. You ever ridden one, huh? You went and asked if you had. I know poet. Can't tell you why it's such a riot, but it's a tonic to the rest of the life, sister. You described the smell of the open air, the forest roads, and the sandy beaches on the road from Oakland to Santa Cruz. Got a cheap Model H right now, but I need one of them new R32s made by the German group who used to make airplanes. Those babies are so fast they might as well fly. His eyes still held a twinkle as I left the taxi cab at my destination. Is she alive yet? No. Okay, nothing new here. I guess go to stables. Yeah, sure. I'll also talk about baseball. about the notes? Do you know anything about the people watching Green? I don't. Okay. How did you know my name? He smiled again. He apparently liked smiling when he was pleased with himself. Barbers hear gossip around town, Miss Malone. Sometimes the gossip is worth remembering. And what gossip have you heard about me, I asked. Just that the niece of late San Francisco detective Louis Malone. She resigned from her policewoman duties and started a private detection agency. But that was months ago, was it not? I confess, I have not heard much since. I asked if he knew Louis. Not well enough, he said. I hear he did his job by the letters of the law, and I lost that alphabet years ago. Would there be anything else? Does he know about Miss Green's gray coat? This is my notes. Okay. Fuck if I know where to put it. I guess we'll go talk to Shipman. I mean, the bar and see if he knows anything. I don't want to talk to him. Talk. That's not they didn't see the letter. What's the okay? He doesn't. The others watching Green. He doesn't. Ugh. I'm gonna be honest. I'm really not feeling this game. It's a lot of reading and guessing. Does he know about that the booze he's drinking? The letter's fake, Frankie. In fact, I said, I do. It's Bus Green was giving me the runaround. This letter is fake. Frankie guessed, so why would Green fire you? I gave my shoulders a shrug. I still need to solve that part. Well, let me know if there's anything I can help you with. Frankie gave me the answers. Alright, well, I have to go anyways. My mother just texted me and says she has a flat tire. So, I think I'll wrap it up here for this game. I like the concept of it. It's just not my style of game. It's not something I enjoy. We'll come back. I'll come back around 8 or 9, and I'll stream something else. Maybe we'll play, I don't know, we'll play something fun or something goofy. So I will be back. Thank you all for watching, and I will talk to you all later. Thank you.